It's time for the Your Personal Bank Show with Ferenc Toth. In an era of chaos, confusion, and craziness, Ferenc is a voice for common sense. As a financial literacy educator, speaker, and entrepreneur, Ferenc cuts through the noise to help us understand how current events affect our money, economy, and our freedom. Now, here's Ferenc Toth.
This is Ferenc, host of the Your Personal Bank Show. Thanks for joining us today, and we have a fun show today. I've got a great guest. As many listeners know, I don't bring on a lot of guests onto this show, so I'm pretty picky about it. But when I do, it's somebody who I feel like is going to bring a real value add to you, our listeners. And today we have Steve Trang with us. He's a sales trainer and host of the Disruptor podcast. So, Steve, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of fun. And actually, it was about a month ago I met Steve through John Burley. Many of you on the show know who he is. And he said, hey, Ferenc, this is a guy you want to connect with. He has a great podcast. You have a great radio show. You guys could work together. Steve, you interviewed me about a month ago.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. I was impressed by your, by the way, folks, he's got a great studio, man. It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And it was actually an incredible episode. We had the most views we've had in some time. Like, I was going back to like, when's the last time we had this many views for an episode? And I think it was 3 years.
Wow, that's amazing. So, yeah. And you know, the topic, most people don't, you know, when they say your personal bank, they don't always necessarily know what that is.
Right.
So the fact that many people listen, like you said, and to a subject maybe isn't exactly mainline to what you always focus on.
Right. Well, I think
exciting.
You weren't the first person we had on the show that's talked about that. Actually,
right.
The third person.
Okay.
But yours was clearly the most compelling.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for the. So, of course, I invited Steve to, join us today. He's got some great information. I think you're going to love. And I guess the first thing I really want to ask you, Steve, is tell us a little about your background. Where do you come from? What have you done?
Yeah, so my background is a little bit different. Came here as an immigrant. I was born in a refugee camp in Italy. So, you go back, my history, like generations. My grandparents, they were merchants, right? They were entrepreneurs in China. And things were humming along, and then some charismatic young guy comes along. It's like, hey, I got this idea where, like, we can spread the wealth. And, of course, communism takes off. And my grandparents lost everything. And
wow.
At this point, they didn't, both sides, they didn't even know each other. But we have two different entrepreneurial families, right? So they fled China, went to Vietnam, started over, rebuilt everything. We're successful merchants again, right? One was selling scrap metal. One was selling jewelry. Everything was good. And then, of course, you got a young, charismatic guy. Says, hey, guys, we got a great idea. We're going to spread the wealth. And, of course, communism takes over again, right?
So your family's lived this twice.
Twice.
Wow.
We've lost everything twice.
And I like the one thing, if you don't mind me interjecting, I like the thing you said, the young, charismatic guy. There's a pattern here.
Oh,
who
yeah.
said, hey, we'll spread the wealth. Do we have any of those out there in this country right now?
We just dodged a bullet.
Oh.
We just dodged a bullet. Right, I was thinking like, hey, if this goes the wrong way, I'm gonna move to Texas and we're gonna succeed and it's gonna be great, right? Because it's like I don't know where we're gonna go from here, right?
Yeah, I'm half Hungarian. Many people know from my dad escaped communism. He was literally shot at escaping, and I've thought about the same thing. Where my wife and I have had these discussions. My family's had some of the same history yours has had with communism,
right?
And it's like, where do you go from here if the U.S. falls down? I mean. As many problems as we have, and we have problems.
We got massive problems.
Right.
We just have to least.
But it's still the best.
Yeah.
I mean, I could become a Hungarian citizen. That's a great, in Europe, it's one of the best countries in Europe for freedom.
Yeah.
But they're right next to Ukraine. And
the
history's not good. So anyway.
Yeah, so it's tough. So, but yeah, we dodged a bullet. But I think this right here is just our family history has ingrained in me, like, I am super pro-capitalist, which it was tough because coming here as an immigrant, being Asian, right, you basically growing up like, hey, you could be anything you want as long as it's doctor, lawyer, or dentist, right? And so you go to school, you get the good grades. I got good grades, got a full ride to Arizona State University. After that, I got a full ride to UC San Diego, where they actually paid me to go to their college to represent them, right? I get my engineering degree, I work at Intel. And after working a W-2 job, I realized, wow, this is not for me. I remember still when I quit my job, both my parents are like, we didn't come here to this country so you can just throw it all away. But then as we had further conversations, wait a minute, but grandma and grandpa on both sides We're entrepreneurs. Why are we trying to pigeonhole me into a box, right? And so again, the capitalistic, the leave me alone, more probably libertarian. You guys can do whatever you want.
Right.
Just leave me and my money alone.
Right.
Right. So I think that spirit really pushed the entrepreneurial side in me.
That's awesome, and I resonate with so much of what you say. Like you said, I shared this some time ago. I said what the left doesn't understand is most of us just want to be left alone.
Right. Yeah. Do whatever you want. Just don't include me in this.
Right. Let me do my thing. Let me raise my family, build my business, whatever.
Exactly.
And as long as I'm not doing anything to hurt anybody, leave me alone.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's awesome. So you, of course, like you said, you graduated, got an engineering degree. You felt very stifled, obviously.
Right. Yeah, because, the independent side of me was not allowed to be innovative once I worked at Intel.
Right.
Because at Intel, you get tens or hundreds of thousands of employees. You can't have every single one be entrepreneurial and innovative. So you had to be a cog in a gigantic machine. And, I didn't know that. But obviously, once you get in there, like, you kind of accept this. And then one day, you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Right.
Right. And you read this book. It's like, wait a minute, there's another way. You don't have to just stick to your W-2. And once, it's kind of like the Matrix with the red pill.
Right.
Once you see there's another way, and you don't have to work until you're 55, 65 to retire, you can't unsee that. And so I went to go buy real estate. As I was buying real estate as an investment vehicle, I met a broker, and that's when I got into real estate. It's like, hey, like, you seem to do pretty well for yourself. What do you do all day, right? And how much do you make? It's like, well, I make 6 figures easily. And I just talk to people all day. It's like, I can do that, right?
Right.
Turned out I couldn't, but in my mind, I was like, I can do that. So I quit my job. I go get my real estate license. I become a realtor. And this is kind of like part of the shiny object syndrome.
Sure.
Like, the book said to buy real estate.
Right.
It didn't say become a real estate agent.
Right.
But as I was buying real estate, I become a real estate agent. And like, I lost about 9 years of my life being a realtor, trying to be a good realtor, and so on, right? Because there's a lot of active income possibility there.
Mm-hmm.
But then along the way, I started brokerage. I got a title company. I have joint ventures and mortgages. And then I started a podcast. I'm buying houses. As I'm doing all these things, a lot of these, by the way, are kind of distractions. They paid well, but they were distractions. It helped me to finally realize what I was put here to do, which is actually sales training. And it's the reason why I say that is because, again, I was not naturally gifted as a salesperson. Being an engineer does not necessarily have a lot of overlap.
Very little.
Very little overlap with sales, right? But because of that, I actually had to learn and study so much human psychology, read so many business books, take so many courses, that I was able to break down what any gifted salesperson does into all, like, here's what he's doing here. Here are all the things he's doing to make you feel a certain way, to get engagement, to get you to desire what it is that, he sells. Like, all these tactics he's doing that he's unaware of, just intrinsically doing, I was able to learn all that. And once I learned all those things, now I could teach it.
Right.
Right now I can share with someone else. I could take someone who's got no sales skills and have them become a pretty good salesperson. And I could take a person who's naturally gifted and turn them into a superstar. And that's I didn't realize that was my gift until after doing a bunch of times, and then having people that I collaborate with, like, Steve, we see what you're doing with your team over here. Can you just have our team do the same thing? And you have enough of those people ask you that, you realize, oh, wait,
There's something here.
There's something here. This is a business. So, and by the way, like,
That's
when we
awesome.
did our interview, when you came into my office, I noticed you did the same thing. Like, the way you sell is like, well, let's figure out, what are your goals?
Right.
What are you trying to accomplish?
Right.
You don't push them into this product or that product.
Right.
It's like, what are your goals? And once you figure out what your goals are, it's like, well, it seems like this particular vehicle right here might help you accomplish those goals. You want to find out more about that?
Right.
Right? And they're like, yeah, let's find out more about it. And then you show it to them. You help them see the picture. And once they see the picture, they're like, oh yeah, Ference, that's what I want.
Exactly.
It's a really easy sell.
Yes, I call it educating them and giving them what they want.
It's not that hard once you give them what they want.
And it just requires asking some questions that
Right.
are illuminating, not
Yeah.
to really get to the bottom line. What is it that they really want?
Right. What are your ultimate goals?
Right.
Right. What's the outcome you desire?
Right. And if I can provide a tool or something that can help you get that,
Mhm.
would you be interested?
Yeah.
I did a lot of the same. Again, I'm resonating with so many things you're sharing with me, Steve,
Yeah.
because I did a lot of the same things early on. I was an entrepreneur and I did those things. Then I got into sales. I did it backwards, and because I always thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur, which I did. But I later learned I need to learn a lot of sales training because I had very little.
Right.
I had a kind of an analytical side, but I found out I was kind of a natural salesperson. Didn't even know it. Right.
Yeah.
But later I kind of reverse engineered. I did it backwards to what
Yeah.
you did. How? Because then they later made me the trainer for the company, and I had to figure out what I did and how I did it and why.
Right.
So I had to reverse engineer all this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And which is a lot harder. A lot harder.
Probably.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like I said, I had just a lot of study, human psychology,
Yep.
tonality, all this behavior stuff. But I also enjoyed it because like my idea of fun
Mm-hmm.
is learning, and that's weird for most people.
Right.
But that's my idea of fun.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Being coachable, learning all the time.
Yeah.
That's how you continue the process and get better at what you do. Let's face it. So if somebody was interested, so again, you're doing a lot of sales training. You have your podcast.
Yep.
If somebody wanted to, first of all, if somebody wanted to tune into your podcast, where do they go?
The first place is to go on YouTube. You do a search for Disruptors, Steve Trang. Didn't realize when I called it Disruptors, there's a bunch of other Disruptors.
Right.
So Disruptors, Steve Trang. You'll find it on YouTube there. Also find it on iTunes. Also find it on Spotify.
Okay. And if somebody's interested in some sales training that you do, how would they contact you?
The best way is to text the word script, SCRIPT, to the phone number 33777, 33777. If you text that, you'll get access to my book, which I wrote, Active Listening 2.0, a script review, a bunch of other bonuses, including me speaking at John Braley's event for about, I want to say, an hour and a half on how to understand another person at a deep level.
That's awesome. So I'm going to encourage you to stay tuned, folks, to the rest of the show. We got Steve all day with us. And if you want, he's going to share more about his sales training, what you can learn from it, maybe how it could help either you yourself or your company. So I encourage you to stay tuned.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ference. For more information, contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you will reach me, yourpersonalbank.com. Today we have a great guest, Steve Trang. If you missed the first segment, I'm going to really encourage you to go back to yourpersonalbank.com. You can listen to this or any of the previously recorded shows. You can go to our app, the Your Personal Bank app. But Steve was sharing his story. It was very interesting, and how he kind of got into the sales training side of things. Steve, first of all, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much.
So you were telling your story, kind of how you got to where you got and eventually figured out that your niche, your passion, your strength was sales training.
Right.
So tell us a little bit more about what you do, especially if somebody reaches out to you.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things is there's a sales process. You know, there are some people who have had success in sales, but they've had inconsistent success in sales. And it's because they're doing things that work, but they're also doing things that don't work, and they don't know necessarily on the day what's working, what's not working, right? And so for us, I believe very much in having a process so that you can yield consistent results. Otherwise, you're winging it. And a joke I made the other day might be kind of corny. It's like, if you want to wing your sales process, that's fine, as long as you don't mind winging your finances, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to have this roller coaster consistently, right? We have high highs, low lows. We've seen that quite a bit with salespeople. When they're good, and they're closing a bunch of sales. But they get in a slump, they stay in a slump because they don't know exactly what it is that's causing them to win. So for me, I believe in a sales process. It's in several steps. The first thing is learning how to set appropriate expectations. Second thing is how to really figure out what their true motivations are. And then there's price negotiations. It's kind of a game. There's a lot of tactics in the negotiations part. And then when you're wrapping up the sale is really preventing remorse. I think that's a big thing that a lot of people miss, because getting a signed contract is great.
Right.
But you also got to make sure like they're happy, they stay with it, and they don't have regret afterwards.
I really resonate with that thing you said about preventing remorse. So what is something like, what do you mean by that, I guess?
Yeah, so if you think about when we buy something, right? There's an old adage, we all want to buy, we don't want to be sold to, right? When we buy something, buying something is an emotional decision, right? We all know from research, buying is a 100% emotional decision, which we then rationalize later on. We justify it beforehand, or we rationalize it later on, right? And so once your emotions and your feelings have come back down to earth, you look at it, you're like, what did I just do? Right?
We've all been there.
What did I just buy? I mean, just think about it. Timeshare, car, any expensive product, for the most part, we have this remorse. And so how do we ensure that they don't have they don't have regrets and so on? And so for a lot of us in this period, right after we get a sale, we just ask them, hey, like, what does this mean to you? And they'll say, well, I just bought this product or whatever. It's like, well, for me, it's finally taking care of A, B, C. And that was the discovery part we talked about earlier. But then we'll say like, hey, look, Ference, if you have any reservations or doubts, whatever, it's better let's just call it off now. And they're like, no, I don't want to, right? Because now we've given them a chance to cancel, so they don't want to cancel later on. But then we're going to ask, like, who might be upset that you didn't talk to them about doing this later on?
Right.
And they'll say so. So like, well, what are you going to tell them? And the point here is that we want them to have at least practiced, even though it's horrific practice, at least practice this conversation with somebody.
Right.
So then their daughter, whoever, doesn't really, try to talk them out of it. And then the last thing is we'll say is like, in a couple of days, you might have some thoughts thinking, boy, this was really a bad idea. What was I thinking? And I just want you to know, Ference, that is a totally normal feeling. And then in a couple of days when they have this feeling, they're like, oh yeah, Steve said I was going to have this feeling. Why am I stressing out, right?
Right.
It's funny enough, like that was something I picked up from Dave Ramsey, one of his books.
Oh, okay.
Because he's by far the most successful realtor in the country, and everyone knows that, right? And so that was something that he had to do when he was selling houses.
Right.
And so, but that prevents the cancellations, the panic phone calls later on. I was like, hey, everything we agreed to earlier, like let's just cancel it. I was in a rush. I wasn't thinking clearly.
Right.
So this is how we prevent remorse and how we keep clients happy. It's something that if you tell somebody something's going to happen, and then later on it happens, it builds more trust, not less trust.
They know what to expect.
They know what to expect. Exactly.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I've done a lot of sales training over the years too.
Yeah.
And you're so right. That's probably one of the hardest things for a salesperson to do
hard.
Is to, like you said, address the negative. They want to, they want to sell the sizzle.
Yeah.
They don't want to talk about the steak. And one of the things I've always shared is, look, and people are always really shocked, because when I would explain, I've dealt with financial stuff for decades now. And I would right up front tell them, hey, you want to know what the catch is? Here's the catch. Here's the limitation. Here's the strengths. Here's the weaknesses. Nothing's perfect.
Right.
They're like, why do you say that? Well, it's a fact.
Yeah, it's
for
a
one.
fact. Yeah.
But I don't want them later finding out, doing some research online. Why didn't he tell me about that?
Yeah.
No, I'm right up front. Boom. This is.
Yeah. Especially if you're trying to build a business long term.
Right. I was thinking long term with folks.
Yeah. Like, could you go get a bunch of sales over promising? For sure.
Sure.
Right. But if you want to build a long, sustainable business with repeat business and referral business,
there you go.
The people have to like you and they have to trust you, right? They have to feel good about this experience.
Yeah, the last thing you want is unpleasant surprises.
Right.
Things
because
you omitted.
Yeah, when you omit it, but on top of that, when they call later on and they want to cancel, you can rescue it.
Maybe.
But usually the better thing to do is to get a refund. Give a refund. which is very unfortunate for business, right? You're
Sure.
clawing back revenue.
Right.
But again, we've got Yelp, we've got Google reviews, we've got Better Business Bureau. If someone calls to get a refund, you're pretty much kind of hosed at this point. And so what we're talking about here, preventing remorse, is not only reducing, the cancellations. And I'm not saying we get a lot of cancellations. We're just saying let's reduce it as close to zero as possible.
It's reality of life.
Yeah. Right. But then the part about like, oh yeah, Steve did say I was gonna have second thoughts about it. He did say this is normal. And again, when you tell somebody something's gonna happen, and then it happens, it builds trust. It shows professionalism.
I had this happen yesterday. Kind of funny you brought it up. So a client that had funded a personal bank policy a couple of years ago, the premium came due the next year. He kind of forgot, right, that was going to happen. And he was agitated, a little irritated. And we went back and I showed him the emails that we had communicated where I had shared that.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, yeah, that's right. Now I remember. You're right. You did tell me that. I kind of overreacted. I apologize. So, I'd been upfront with him about it.
Yeah, you told him it was going to happen, and then it happened.
And then, exactly. And then he said, and I said, if you have any questions or anything, an issue in the future, feel free to reach out to me. And he said, Ference, you have been very accessible. I appreciate that.
Right.
Even though he was clearly agitated and irritated because he forgot something and he misunderstood.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
But it ended on a good note, is my point.
Trust.
Right.
And now he feels, again, comfortable.
Right.
If he wants to do something again, comes back to you. Or if you hear someone else, hey, trying to figure out what to do with my investments.
Right.
Go to Ference. Go to your personal bank.
And like I told him, I said, you've got like 3 options here. And yeah, one of them is to close it down, cancel everything. I'm going to run all the numbers for you to show you all the options.
Right.
Lay it all out. I'll show you the strengths and weaknesses of each. And then you decide what makes the most sense for you.
Right.
He goes, that'd be great.
Yeah. And now it's his choice.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. The other thing I want to talk about is expectations. And I think one of the things that we see quite a bit is unmet expectations. If you think about every situation you've ever been frustrated, upset with somebody, it's almost always you expected one thing and you got something else. Like the classic example is anytime you file an insurance claim, right?
Right.
The guy that sells you insurance, charming fella, right?
Right.
Great guy, wants to be your best friend.
Right.
What you don't know is that the insurance companies have two departments. One guy to sell you insurance, the other guy to deny the claims.
Right.
Right. Or at least beat you down on what they'll pay
Now,
out.
to be clarified, you're talking about homeowners and auto insurance and those kind of things.
those
Not the
kinds of
stuff
insurance.
that I do.
Not what you do. No.
Mine's pretty clear.
No.
The death benefit pays when they die. That's pretty black and white.
That's black and white, right? But for example, AppleCare.
Right. There you go.
You got an iPhone, you buy AppleCare,
Yeah.
and I remember going to the Apple store. I was like, hey, it's not working. I have AppleCare. Like, can you guys take care of this? And they looked at it. No. Like, what do you mean no?
I paid you for this.
I've been paying for this, right?
Right.
And so what always happens then with insurance is you get, not all insurance, but a lot of insurance is you expected to be taken care of when you were down. And what you got was, hey, you know what? Sorry, that's not really covered.
We're going to deny your claim or limit what we're.
Exactly, right? So then you think about every sales conversation. Most often when you're having a sales conversation, the dynamic from the prospect is like, hey, I just want to get information. Hey, Ference, can you just tell me what it is and maybe even really early on, what's this going to cost me?
Right.
Right? Like that's generally the prospect's behavior.
Sure.
But what do we want every time we have a sales conversation? We want a sale. That's the natural desire, right? So if we're having a sales conversation, what we need to do is reset those expectations at the beginning of the conversation so that you're not frustrated that you didn't get a sale. So it might sound something like this, like, hey, Ference, before we get into this, can we just have a quick conversation about how these normally go? I say, sure. And then depending on what you're selling, right? The big key here is you're going to have questions. You're going to have questions about exactly how our process works. What's it going to cost you? What's the service going to look like? Am I missing anything?
Right.
And obviously for me to figure out, like, if it makes sense for us to even work together,
Right.
I'm going to ask you some questions. And some of these questions might come across as, I don't know, maybe a little personal. Like, cause any problems? And at the end, we'll figure out if it makes sense for us to work together, not work together. Either way is okay. If, the price doesn't make sense for you, you just don't get a good feeling about me. Will you just feel comfortable telling me no? And likewise, if I figure out, maybe we shouldn't work together. You can be okay if I tell you that. If it makes sense for us to work together, we're just going to go ahead and work out all the documents so that we're
Right.
all on the same page.
Right.
Fair. And all I'm doing here is just letting you know if it's a yes, we're doing business today, right?
Right.
Not this thing where like they want to get information
Mm-hmm.
and then I force you to sign something, right? Another
Right.
thing too is,
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna hold you on that thought there, Steve, because I love what you're sharing here. And we're in the next segment. We're going to add to it, and I've got a question I know Steve's going to know the answer to.
perfect.
But if somebody wants to contact you, Steve, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, the best way is to text me the word script to the phone number 33777, SCRIPT 33777. You'll get my book in PDF format, as well as a bunch of bonus modules. We'll review your script, and you'll get access to the recordings I did with John Burley. 90 minutes, how to communicate with other people.
Awesome, folks. Stay tuned in the next segment. We got more of Steve Trang and his sales training. I think you're going to love it.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ference. For more information, contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you will reach me. It's yourpersonalbank.com. We have a great guest today, Steve Trang. He is the host of the Disruptors podcast, also a very well-known sales trainer. If you're interested in learning more about sales for yourself, your team, all that stuff, I'm going to encourage you to reach out and contact Steve. But listen to what he's going to share now. This is Steve. This is some information that's gold, and I appreciate you being on the show here.
Oh, absolutely appreciate it.
Yeah, and I know at the end of the last segment we had to kind of cut off a thought. If you don't mind, kind of picking up from where you were, what we were discussing, and take it from there.
Yeah. So when we talk about setting expectations, it's really important because again, like the prospect believes that this is going to be an information gathering conversation, but as a salesperson, you want to get the sale. You don't want to be Google or YouTube, or I guess these days ChatGPT for them, right? You want the sale. That's your responsibility, everyday income generating activities, right?
Right.
And so the problem, I think the general public has this perception of sales of being a pushy salesperson. If you think about cars, I think they're probably the ones that get the worst reputation, probably earn. Sorry if anyone's offended, right? But you have this mindset of, I won't take no for an answer. And I won't take no for an answer just drives massive sales resistance. They're going to lie to you. They're going to dodge you, right? They're not going to tell you what's going on. And we shared in an earlier segment about my philosophy on sales, your philosophy on sales is let's figure out what you want and let's see how I can help you get that.
Right.
Right.
The analogy I always use, it's like dating.
Yeah.
It's like having a cup of coffee, first date, to see if there's a connection.
Right. See if there's something here.
Right.
Right. And so when we're talking about setting expectations, hey, Ference, tell me yes, tell me no. Either way is okay. What we're training salespeople in our sales training process is be firm, be assertive, right? Be professional,
right?
But also push for no, right? And no's okay,
right?
Because if we push for no, what's great about pushing for no is now we've set boundaries for what a yes can be. If we can clearly define what a no is, now we can figure out what a yes is, right? But this whole deal of like, I won't take no for an answer, and you're going to keep pushing yes, you're going to push them. That works great, specifically in car sales, because the great thing about car sales is that the moment they drive off the lot, sales done.
Right. You're gone.
You're gone, right? But if you're selling services, well, they can cancel, right? If you're a realtor, they can cancel the listing. I mean, legally, I guess they can't, but they can make your life pretty difficult, right? Insurance, right?
Any ongoing service or referral type business.
Yeah. Good luck getting any referrals. Right. If I hard close you today on $1 million policy, maybe you sign today. Maybe. Right. But then in 3 days, when the ACH goes, they're going to call their bank like, hey, I didn't really want to do this sale.
Right.
That gets reversed. Now you got a bad merchant processing reputation. Right. You got bad reviews on social media.
Right.
It's not a good situation.
in my industry, yeah, those kind of people don't last long
No, right?
at all.
And so we have to respect the prospect. And so we give them options and we tell them, hey, look, if this doesn't work, just tell me no, and I'll be on my way.
Right.
Now, on the flip side of that, once you tell me no, I'm going to say something along the lines like, okay, so it sounds like this is over. Say, yep, it's over. Now that it's over, how are you going to deal with A, B, and C?
Right. That's a
And
good
once they
point.
start talking about that, you miss something there, you can address that, and the sales conversation has restarted, but the prospect hasn't realized the sales conversation has restarted, and now we get a second at bat in the sales conversation.
So I love a lot of the stuff you're sharing in the sales process, but one of the things I always really stress with people, and I thought it was funny, if I talked about closing or making all my salespeople, all my agents would get excited. When I talked about building a bigger sales funnel, more prospects, I told them that's the most important part, but there wasn't much enthusiasm for that.
No, it's not. Well, there's two different parts. We
Really? Yeah.
right. We have the hunter and the gatherer, right? Or the farmer, and like the hunter just wants to close, right? Hey, Farron, just tell me where to aim.
Yeah.
Tell me where to aim,
Right.
and I'll go, right? But the hunter has a harder time building a longer, sustainable, repeatable, and hopefully boring business because that's super profitable.
Right. Consistency.
Consistency. The farmer and gatherer, that is where the long term is. The challenge, oftentimes we found with farmers and gatherers, is that they don't have that desire to go hunt, and we have to hunt too, right? So I would say it's probably better to be like 60-40, 70-30 hunter or gatherer with the hunting skills.
Right.
Right. And so it's not exciting to talk about farming and referrals, but man, we can talk about closing all day.
Right. Exactly. The analogy I always use was I'm sure you're familiar with the sales funnel, and and those of you that are not, it's basically I call it, you have suspects. These are the people that you suspect may be interested, right? Then you have prospects and presentations, and then eventually you have clients in the bottom.
Absolutely.
And most people's sales funnel looks more like a pipe. So they have very few suspects, which means therefore they have very few people going through the pipe to eventually become a client. So that's where the high pressure tactics come in.
You have to close this one.
Yeah, because they don't have anybody else to talk to.
Yeah.
But if your funnel, you've seen those oil funnels where they're really big on the top.
Exactly.
It takes all the pressure off.
Takes a lot of pressure off. But on top of that, I think there's elements of you got to recognize who you are, right? So
True.
I am a strategist. I like to plan how we're gonna get more business, and I like to hunt, meaning I like to close. But I actually don't like farming and gathering. So in my realtor days, I was always a high-performing realtor. I always got a lot of business, but it was because I was really good at getting leads and then having a process for closing them. But the repeat business, I was really bad at. And so what I had to do at least to modify for my lack of desire in farming and gathering is we just built a team around that, right? So we had a customer wow person whose job was to make sure on Ferentz's birthday he got something nice. Right. We had a process in place for me to call you. Hey, Ferentz, just want to call you. Wish you happy birthday. Hope you have the best day ever, and all these other things. Right. We built around our weaknesses so that I can go do what I naturally am good at. Well, I guess I wasn't naturally good at sales, but I got there. But what I want to go do that requires the least amount of energy for me to do consistently. Okay. And I think that's one of the key things, right? What is a low energy, high output activity for you? For me, it was getting more business. So I need to find other people who actually enjoy checking out people's Facebook profiles, see what's interesting going on in their lives, tracking their birthdays, making sure we're sending out some sort of wow product on a regular basis. For example, when I was for my realtor hat, you sent me a referral and they bought something. Actually, wouldn't even have to buy something, but if they did, for sure, I'm going to treat you and your wife to a full meal at Ruth's Chris. Right? There's a thank you program.
Right.
As a hunter myself, there's no way I am going to remember after showing a property to call Ruth Chris and schedule a reservation for Ferentz and his wife. Right. So you need to have a process in place to make sure that someone is doing the things that are high energy for you, exhausting, that you don't want to do.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, like Outlook has been a godsend. It's
Yeah.
been a saving because it gives me those reminders
Right.
to reach back to people. Because when I promised I was going to get back with them, for example. So now I've learned to just put it in the calendar and it pops up. Oh yeah, I'm
Exactly.
and like you said, I don't mind doing that stuff, but you're so busy doing all this stuff, you kind of forget.
You're running around taking
Yeah.
care of things.
Right. So a lot of people ask me, how do you remember? My wife does that too. She goes, how do you remember that? Well, I've just gotten good at, like you said, creating a process. At the time I said, hey, I'm going to get back with you in February because we got to talk about XYZ. I just put it in my task, my to-do list.
Yeah. I mean, we've gotten to the point now.
Yeah.
I mentioned the ChatGPT earlier with AI.
Yeah.
These days, I don't know if we want to go direction of the show, but like on all my consultations now, I have AI on the Zoom call.
Yep.
And AI, it's like, here are all the action items from this call.
Right.
And it automatically goes to my to-do list.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So I'll have to ask you about that. That you've really automated it.
Yeah. Had to.
Yeah. Well, as you get busier, you kind of have to do a lot of that type of stuff.
Exactly.
So that's really cool. So what are some, like, maybe some folks you've worked with, maybe a success story or two you'd like to share?
Oh, man. So we had the best success story, I would say, happened about a month and a half ago. So we had our live event in December. It's 2 full days in my office to go through our sales process. And this guy, he brought his whole team, I want to say like 4, maybe 5 people there. And the Monday after, right? So it's Thursday and Friday. The Monday after, they drove 100,000 in revenue, right? Pretty good day.
Right.
Pretty good month. For some people, pretty good year.
Right.
Right?
Depends.
But a really good day.
Right.
Right? And all it was they had just refreshed on the sales principles because they've learned the sales principles. I've taught them sales principles, but 2 days immersed where there are no distractions and all you're doing is just talking about sales. They were on point.
Right.
And so they had an incredible day. So that's definitely been one of my favorite success stories.
Sports teams do the same thing,
Exactly.
even professionals, they've been doing it their whole lives, but sometimes they'll go back to like a football team, blocking and tackling.
It really comes down to the fundamentals. And I'm a stickler for process. You guys may not be able to tell, but like everything I do, let's do it optimally. I do Kung Fu, right? You want to be optimal with all your moves, right?
Right.
Basketball, I was not put on this planet for sports. I was put on this planet to sit behind a computer. However, when I do play basketball, everything is processed. It's consistent. I'll throw a chest pass. Let me take a step back. I get agitated out of my mind when they'll throw a behind the back pass out of bounds when a simple chest pass would have sufficed. I lose my mind when we're not boxing out, right?
Right.
Simple things. Let's stick to the fundamentals. And if you get, the best teams, like the Patriots were a dynasty, right?
Sure.
Sorry if you guys hate Patriots. I'm not a big Patriots fan, but I love what they did.
They had a great system.
Right? Stick to the process, do the fundamentals, the wins will come.
And that's probably coming from your engineering background, by the way, I would guess.
I think a little bit.
Yeah, you like the process, and that's
Yeah.
a typical engineer, obviously.
Exactly.
So if somebody wants to reach out and contact you, Steve, how would they do that?
The best way is to text the word script to 33777, SCRIPT, to the phone number 33777. You'll get my book, Active Listening 2.0, the PDF version. You'll get a bunch of bonus modules, including me speaking at John Burley's event for 90 minutes, as well as a complimentary script review. We'll look at what your script looks like today and see if there's room for improvement.
That's awesome. Well, this is a great interview. Love this. We got Steve for one more segment here. I'm going to ask him what he sees coming in the future, where he's going to be at the next 5 years. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned for more common sense from Ference. For more information, contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show with Ference Toth. Want more information? Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. Now back to the show with Ference Toth.
Welcome back to the Your Personal Bank Show. This is Ference. If you want to reach me, you can do so at yourpersonalbank.com. Yes, you will reach me. It's yourpersonalbank.com. We have a great interview today with Steve Trang. He's host of the Disruptors podcast, also a sales trainer. He's been sharing a lot of great information about sales training. So whether you're in that arena or maybe you're a business owner and you have a sales force and you miss this, I'm going to really encourage you to go back to yourpersonalbank.com or the Your Personal Bank app and listen to what Steve has been sharing today. Steve, thank you for joining us today on the show.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Awesome. So you mentioned something on the break that for somebody who has a sales team, and I've been there myself, getting salespeople to perform consistently is one of the greatest challenges. What do you recommend to that person?
Yeah, it's the bane of every single business owner, right? Inconsistent revenue. And the reason why you have inconsistent revenue is because you have inconsistent salespeople that are not performing consistently. So like what are some things you might hear that might indicate you might have a sales team problem, right? You might hear things like the leads suck, right? We need more leads. Or you might notice when you're looking at the CRM or the system, like, oh, they just cherry pick the easy ones, and then all the other ones that require a little bit of effort are just dying on the vine. Right. And so we got to get consistent results from our salespeople. And so I look at building a sales team as multiple different things you got to do. First, you got to figure out how to find good salespeople, right? And once you find them, how do you recruit them? And then how do you onboard them? And then how do you train them for performance? How do you manage them? And then ultimately, how do you retain them? Because one of the other problems with hiring salespeople and training them up is sometimes they go out to compete against you, right? So there's multiple facets here. But let's talk about how to get consistent sales performance. I think one of the biggest things is we all fear accountability. We all fear accountability conversations. I'm in a mastermind, and one of the running jokes is like newer members of the masterminds, you ask them what's their culture like. Oh, our culture is great. Everyone loves it. Okay, what's your biggest problem? Accountability, right? Well, the reason why you have this fun culture is because you guys don't have accountability, right? And so actually I had a letter of resignation yesterday, right? Came through email and chat, and she said basically like, there's too much micromanaging and accountability. And when I got that, I was like, great. Right?
That was a compliment.
That just shows like we're doing the right things. Like we're holding people accountable to results, to activity, quarterly commitments, we're hitting them. Like that is the most important thing as a business. And so with the salespeople, what we're really trying to do is we want them to treat it as if it's their own book of business. And the way we have them treat it like it's their own book of business is we got to figure out what's important to them, right? Every salesperson I've ever interviewed, hey, what are you trying to make? 6 figures. It's like the go-to answer over and over again. It almost doesn't matter what industry. I want to make 6 figures. Great. What do you want to make 6 figures for? And that's the important thing. What is their ultimate purpose? What are they trying to accomplish? I had a chance to listen to Jeff Hoffman speak. He was the founder of Priceline, a multi-billion-dollar company.
Sure.
He only has one interview question. What is your epic life goal? Right? If you don't have purpose, you're just not going to make it here, right? So let's figure out what is it you're trying to accomplish, and let's figure out how, again, going back, how we can help you get there, right?
In essence, you're selling the salesperson to work for you.
I'm selling them on how to accomplish their dream.
Right.
Working with me is just a vehicle to making it happen.
Right.
So what are you trying to do? Okay, so if you're trying to make $150,000 because you want to retire your spouse, you want to go put your kids through club sports, like my kid just signed up for volleyball, that's expensive.
Boy,
right?
Isn't it?
I need some additional financial planning for that, right? So if you want to put your kids in club sports, live in a gated community, private school, whatever it is, it takes money, right? So we're going to talk about, okay, so you want to do A, B, and C. Let's figure out how much money do you actually need to make to make that happen, right? Let's stop with the 6 figures. How much do you actually need to make?
That is such a common misunderstanding.
Yeah.
People are not motivated by money.
They're not. They say they are.
They say they are. They think they are, in fact.
Yeah.
They're not lying. That's what they think.
Right.
But that's not what motivates them. It's what will the money do for them.
Exactly. Right. So once we figure out what exactly they want, then exactly how much they need to make. Once we figure out exactly how much you need to make, now we can break down, all right, well, in order to do that, here's how much you need to make per month. And once we figure out how much you need to make per month, how many sales do you need to have per month to hit this financial target? And once we figure out how many sales, okay, how many conversations do you need to have a week? Right, to have that many conversations per week, what do you need to do every single day to ensure you have that many conversations per week, so that you can make contracts per month, so that you can make this kind of revenue, So at the end of the year, you can make this much money so that you can accomplish your goal.
My message, my show at the beginning of the year was all about goal setting and setting an action plan, which is
Right.
what you just described.
Exactly. But the problem is a lot of business owners, when we have salespeople, are we mentoring our salespeople in this capacity? Are we giving them life advice? Are we giving them financial advice? Or it's, all right, here, thanks, parents. Here's a login. Here's your computer. Here's your microphone. Or here's your earpiece.
Right? Go
Have
to
at it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And so that's a leadership thing, which is
Right.
the other thing we teach. But
right.
I think first and foremost, you want consistent sales results. You got to get consistent salespeople. And the way to get consistent salespeople is to help them accomplish their goals.
There you go. So we could end right there, and I think people, I
think so.
would be they would do a lot better.
Exactly.
If somebody was interested in learning, maybe because you, of course, you not only do sales training, but obviously you work with the owners of the companies who have sales teams, right?
Right, exactly.
So if they wanted to contact you for more information on that, where would they go?
So the best way still is the same thing. So texting script, SCRIPT to the phone number 33777. You can start there. Someone on my team will talk to you and say, hey, this is what I want. We don't really have a call to action because I don't talk about this as much publicly.
Okay.
It's mostly at other masterminds where
Right.
we have other people that, they've got, what do I want to say? They're driving a lot of revenue and they're trying to improve their salespeople.
Right.
Most people we talk to need help with sales in general. But yeah, so you use the same phone number, script 33777. You'll get in front of my team. We can have a conversation about that.
So whether you're trying to figure this out for yourself or you got a team you want to improve the consistency on.
Yeah.
I want to go back to a personal note a little bit here. So I love the story where you came from, your family, all that stuff, going through communism twice. That's amazing.
Yeah. And my dad was in prison too. I forgot about to mention
Oh,
that. Right, trying to flee communism. They don't like it when you try to leave.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like I said, my dad had the same experience.
Yeah.
Where do you've done some really awesome stuff. You're hosting the podcast, the Disruptors podcast. That's obviously going well for you.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself the next 5 years? Where are you headed?
Well, I mean, truthfully, I have a plan, actual plan on how to sell my company personally for $100 million. Now, that might sound crazy, but, you surround yourself with ultra successful people and you see what they do. My best friend sold his company for $80 million. So now over here, keeping up with the Joneses, I'm feeling inadequate. So, the goal is to have a 9-figure exit. So I'm doing everything I can to put everything in place because we know what we have to do. We just need to execute. Like we have the plan. Maybe I'm just being ignorant here again, but we've failed in every way possible to get to where we are today. I feel like we've got everything else in place. We just need to drive enough revenue to get a multiplier, right? So I did an appraisal on my company. So we got it back yesterday. And I've learned how they value companies like mine.
Right.
Right. And it's a 1.7 multiplier on revenue or a 9 times multiplier on net profits. So now that I know that, now I know what financial targets I need to hit
Right.
to have a $100 million company.
Basically applying everything that you're teaching.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have a goal, you have an action plan, and then you just got to work the plan.
We just got to execute it.
What do you do when this is in basic natural human nature? You have the goal, you have the action plan, but you just don't feel like doing it today or this week or this month. You know what I'm trying to say? Life happens. What do you do? What do you do then?
I don't have a good answer to that question because I'm broken in a way.
Okay.
Because we all go through our childhood traumas.
Sure.
Right? There are things that happen to us as we were kids that form us the way we are. So I've been pretty lousy in, like if Jordan as a basketball coach, you always like, Jordan, how do I dunk better? He would just just jump higher.
Right.
He's not going to be as good a coach and how to dunk better. Right.
Right.
And so for myself, for better or for worse, this is just how I'm wired. Like I'll tell you, I took my whole family to Hawaii. Okay. 7 days, right?
Right.
My wife, my kids, my parents, my in-laws.
Okay.
7 days. By the end of the second day, I was bored out of my mind. Right? I was like, what else is there to do here? And I couldn't wait to get back to the office.
You can only go to the beach so many times, right?
Yeah, right? And so and that's horrific. Like I should be more present with my kids and so on.
Right.
So to answer your question, I don't have a good answer because I can't imagine any other way.
That's an honest answer, though. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think what I've found in teaching people is over the years is you do have to, like you said, find that overarching goal, like you said, what's the big goal, and break it down in bite-sized pieces.
Yep.
And sometimes there's things that get in the way,
Sure.
and you just got to figure out emotionally, mentally. And sometimes you have to take a break and then move forward back to that goal again.
Yeah, and it's not without its challenges, right? Like being wired the way I am, am I the most loving husband, the most loving father? I do everything I can to be, right? I'm present.
Sure. Right.
My daughter just had a 3-day volleyball tournament. I was there all 3 days.
Good for you.
Right? Rooting for her with my phone in my pocket while she's playing.
Just in case.
Right. Just in case, but it's not out, right? And so like,
okay.
So I'm there present. I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do. So it's not without its challenges, but I don't know. I think I'm so crystal clear on my vision. And right now I have the best team I've ever had behind me because we got a lot better at hiring.
Sure.
All right. Learning all these things over the years.
Yep.
That it's just a matter of when, not if. I actually had someone, an investor, is like, hey, Steve, what are the risks? If I invest in your company, what is the risk that this thing happens? Like, there's only one risk. Like, what's that? If I die. Because it's happening.
And that's what we should talk about, some succession planning, just in case.
Just in case.
Anyway, but that's really cool though. Like you said, if you get that overarching goal and make it so crystal clear, and you see the path, and really unless something traumatic happens, there's no obstacle to that. But that'll actually encourage you more to push forward because you're getting closer to that finish line.
Well, not only is it my plan, everyone in the company knows the plan.
Right.
Everyone in my circle knows the plan. I've posted it on Facebook over and over again. Like, I have massive accountability to everyone else. This is the plan.
And like you brought up before, that's maybe one of the hardest things to do ego-wise, to put yourself out there like that.
Exactly.
With that accountability.
Yeah.
But you have to if you want to really succeed.
The easiest way is to have community accountability.
Yeah, Dad, what are you doing? Why are you home today? Kind
Exactly.
of deal. And because you've got this goal and you brought in your family and all this. I've done that with a lot of salespeople over the years.
Yep.
They have a family goal. They're going to take this trip. They're going to do this. And Dad's sitting at home one day. Guess who's on them?
Mom, I thought we were going to Disneyland.
Yeah, the wife and the kids are like, Dad, why are you home at 11 o'clock?
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, Steve, it's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed having you here. One last time, if somebody wants to contact you, what's the best way?
Yeah, the best way, script, SCRIPT, to the phone number 33777.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. And I'm going to encourage you to stay tuned to the Your Personal Bank show next week. And as long as it's on our money, in God we trust.
Listen Tuesdays at noon and Saturdays at 1 to the Your Personal Bank show for more information. Contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. That's 866-268-4422. This show is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information. The presenter and guests of this program do not engage in legal, accounting, or tax advice. Professional advice regarding your situation should be sought if required. Some products discussed may have limitations and not be available in all states. Excessive unpaid loans may affect performance. Distributions may become taxable if not managed properly. Replacements may not be suitable for everyone. There may be charges when replacing coverage. Dividend rates and bank line of credit rates may change. For current rates, contact Ference at 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com. Again, that's 866-268-4422 or yourpersonalbank.com.